Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Terry White, worldwide photography evangelist here at Adobe. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you once again live from my home studio here in Atlanta, Georgia. For those of you who are new to the show or new to Adobe Live or new to me, thank you and welcome. If you're watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. I love replay numbers. For those of you who are new, you may be watching this in a variety of different places. You might be watching it on Facebook. You might be watching it on YouTube. You might be watching it on LinkedIn. You could be watching it just about anywhere. But I do want to point out, if you are watching it somewhere else, somewhere other than Adobe Live, if you want your comments to be seen or you want your questions to be seen, head over to b.net/Adobe Live and sign in with your Adobe ID, and you can join people like Sam Peterson, Cody Bear, Stony Braswell, Sean Kozel, James, and Steve. They're all in the chat right now. They're in the chat. So I just listed a bunch of names. TGIF Shari is right. Today is Friday, one of my favorite days of the week. It is, if not the favorite day of the week, not only because it's Friday at the end of the week, but I also get to do one of the streams I love doing the most, which is my photography masterclass. Last week, just to get into it, we did how I would edit your photos. I put up a link ahead of time, like the Monday or Tuesday before, and people submitted images. And I got through a few of them, but I didn't get through nearly as many as I wanted to. So I decided to make today part 2. And we got some more entries as well. But I just want to give people a fair chance. Hey, I submitted my photo and you never get to it. And I won't always get to it, but I want to get to more of them today. So my goal today is to do more of them quicker, as opposed to spending a lot of time on a single image. And there was a heavy retouch I did last week with that kid with the train and replacing the background and all that. And it was fun to do that. And it was fun. I was happy with my result. But again, that cut down probably on 3 or 4 images I could have gotten to had I not taken the time to do all that. So today, I don't want to cut out something that I would normally do, but I do want to do things a little quicker. So I'm not going to spend as much time belaboring points that you know that I do all the time. So meaning edits and things and features I show all the time. I'm just going to get right into it and go faster, hopefully. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. Let me get my computer up and let's turn that off, go to the computer. There we are. So I'm in Lightroom Classic in a special catalog that I created just for this particular class that I do on how I would edit your images. Again, a bunch of entries, some from this week, some from last week, some from weeks before. So I kind of get to some of those images that I never got to, including some of the ones from last week and of course some new ones from this week. Now, I will be going back and forth between Lightroom and Photoshop, like I always do. If I could do it all in Lightroom, I'll do it all in Lightroom. If I can't, then I'll go to Photoshop. So let's get to it. So this first image, let's go full screen. Nice. I love dogs. So that's why I like doing this one first. I'm going to go ahead and hop over to the develop module. And in the develop module, again, a couple quick things. It's a JPEG, so I'm not going to choose a raw profile, but let's go ahead and do a couple things real quick. If there is a lens correction to apply, I'll go ahead and apply that. Let's go back to basic, and I will almost always do an auto tone just to see what Lightroom gives me. An auto tone, yeah, did a good job. So the next thing I might do, and this is, I start to look for things that bug me. The thing that's bugging me about this image is that it's a slightly crooked. Or maybe the landscape is just going down at an angle, but it looks crooked. So with that, I will hop over to my crop tool. I will grab the angle, and I will just, the angle tool, and I will drag it along what I think should be straight, and then Lightroom will straighten it out based on that. There we go. And you're going to lose a little bit of the edges of the image, and that's okay. I'd rather the image be straighter than crooked, and the dog doesn't care. He or she is happy, so we're just going to go with that. Now, the auto tone did a really good job. There are a few of the shadows that are being clipped or filled in. I can hover over this triangle in the upper left corner to see that. And I'm just going to drag right below that triangle to the right to kind of remove some of that clipping. The warning goes away, so I know I know my shadows aren't being clipped. Now, the only other thing I might do with this particular animal here is when I'm working on animal photos, I usually like to brighten up and sharpen the eyes a little bit. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and go into my adjustment brush. My adjustment brush has presets. I'm going to go ahead and set the exposure preset, and we're just going to move it over to lighten. And all you're doing by choosing a preset is you're turning off everything else. So if I, for example, go over to highlights, it does highlights and turns off everything else. If I go to exposure, it does exposure and turns off everything else. So that's all I want to do. All right, the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and just, I'm going to make that brush a lot smaller. Let's just bring that brush size way down using my left bracket key on the keyboard next to the letter P on an English keyboard. All right, so with that, I'm just going to go ahead and just a couple quick brush strokes into the eye. And again, if it's too much, I'm not worried about that because I still can adjust how much I'm applying just by dragging the exposure slider. So that's darkening the eye. We don't want that. We're just going to basically lighten the eyes up a little bit. And while we're here, we can go ahead and add a little bit of, we can add sharpness to it. And I love sharpened eyes, but because it's, eyes, we can also add a little bit of texture. Now, the only other thing I might do real quick on this image, and then we're going to move on, is I might go in and grab my spot removal tool and just go ahead and click on, I don't know what this is in this tree, but it's kind of distracting. So we'll just click it and just remove it just like that. That's it. That's what I would do to this photo. I could always go do more, but those are the main things I would do. Like I might go into Photoshop and remove the collar. So again, it's just, those are the fundamental things I would do. Could I do more? Sure. But then we wouldn't get to other photos. So we're going to stop on this one. This is our before, our after. So just look at the eyes. That's the before. That's the after. Just brightening up those eyes a little bit. And you could tone down that sky. You could even replace that sky in the background. A million more things we can do, but we're going to move on. All right, so let's move on to the next photo. That's what I mean by going faster this week. So this particular photo, I don't know, it's a castle or house or school building. What is it? I don't know what this building is, but it's a building. And so let's go ahead and do those same kinds of things. Let's see, this is a raw file, so I will go in and I will look at my lens corrections just to make sure that, yep, see, enabling that profile correction kind of straightens out the image a little bit from a bowing standpoint and removes some of that vignetting caused by the lens around the edges. All right, so now that we've done that, we're going to go into our camera raw profiles, and we're going to go into, let's do landscape. And this landscape's gotten a lot better over the last couple versions. And last but not least, just like the last one, this one's definitely crooked. I can see the ground going to the left there. So we're going to go to crop. We're going to go to angle. Once you see a crooked horizon, you can never ignore it again. And we're just going to go ahead and straighten that out using the angle tool, which I love, 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 love. Oh, the only other thing I might try while we're here, since it's a building, is I might go into my transform, there we go, and I might do an auto upright just to see if it straightens the building looking like they're leaning in, the towers, like straighten those up a little bit, and it did do just that. Steve, you're right, that was one happy doggo. Why can't I store adjustment? So John's asking a question about the presets. Why can't I store adjustment brush presets in Lightroom like I can in Lightroom Classic and Camera Raw? Because it's just not a feature yet. If there's how come I can't do something in the newer version of Lightroom? Keep in mind, this version's, I don't know, 15 years old, a lot of time to get a lot of stuff in. That version's only a few years old. Not a lot, not everything's in yet. So that's why, just because it hasn't happened yet. All right, next up, let's go in and look at the sky. Now the sky is kind of, So I would replace that sky because I can now so easily. But before we get into all that, let's go back up and do our things. Let's go into, we didn't do our auto yet. And we also didn't look at the white balance. The white balance is as shot. I might try daylight. I might try cloudy because it was usually, cloudy's like making it a little too warm. So I might go into daylight on that one. And that one's pretty cool. Okay, so next up, let's go ahead and take this over to Photoshop with everything we've done to it thus far. That would be a Command E on my Mac. It would be a Control E on Windows. That will take a copy of the raw file over to Photoshop. So I don't usually duplicate the background because it's a copy already. And so I like while I'm here, this little spot in the road, just because it's obvious, and just go ahead and remove that with the patch tool. I was even already on the patch tool. Cool for me. Next thing I will do is I will go into Edit, Sky Replacement, Feature in Photoshop. It will look at the sky. It will use the last sky I used, which that isn't appropriate for this image. You can go in and look at the skies we have. So we have blue skies, spectacular skies, sunsets. Those are the ones that come with Photoshop. You can import your own skies. So the only downside to importing your own skies is you have to have them as JPEG files on your hard drive and import them. The good news is that every time I've shown this in the past, when people ask about importing skies, I would have to give the one caveat that you can only do one sky at a time. Now that's changed. You can do up to 5,000 skies at once. So you can grab a whole folder of skies, shift click all of them, or Command A or Control A to select all, import them all in. I highly recommend you create a folder first, like I do have Terry Skies. Then click on that folder, click the plus sign at the bottom, and add all the skies you want. So if you have a collection of skies, you can bring them in faster now. So for example, if I go to my skies where I've got some that kind of match that drab day, then I get just get a little bit more cloud detail in the sky. Maybe I want to pick something like that. That looks pretty good. So pick a sky that's kind of representative of what's going on in your image that day, and you'll end up with a better result. Maybe I want that sky. Actually, I kind of like the one with a little bit of blue in it. I like that. I just like that sky. So it may not be the best sky for this image, but I like it. So let's click OK. That always does it non-destructively. It adds a layer group to the image. You can turn that off or on at any given time, and away you go. All right. I just want to check one thing here. Good. All right. So now that I got my sky replaced, I just simply hit save. It'll save all the layers, save everything I've done. If I made layers, if I added images, if I did anything, it'll save that. Layered, in my case, PSD file. Lightroom defaults to a TIFF file. I changed my default in Lightroom Classic to bring back PSDs. And then once I close this and head back to Lightroom, it will be there right next to the original. So here's where we started with the Lightroom adjustments, and there's where we ended up just removing that little spot in the road and adding just a different or better sky, just something a little bit more interesting. And again, sky choice is up to you. Moving on, let's get there quicker. All right, let's go to this image. I love when people submit portraits. I don't get enough portraits, so for the last couple weeks, people have been submitting portraits. Thank you, because it's my favorite subject to edit. So this looks like, I don't know, I'm guessing a wedding type portrait. And one of the things we can see clearly is that there's a piece of equipment that is in the frame. It could be a softbox, could be a reflector, who knows, but whatever it is, it needs to not be there. And one of the things you might be tempted to do right off the bat is just go ahead and crop it, right? So let's say we grab crop and we crop over. Yeah, you're cropping it out, you're getting rid of it, but you're also getting rid of part of her dress. So in this case, this wouldn't be an opportunity for crop because crop is going to remove something you do want. Now, if it were in the top left and maybe I can crop down a little bit, but it's on the top and the side, so cropping's not going to do it. But let's go ahead and do the other things we need to do first. So while we're at it, again, lens correction, boom. And by the way, I could have made a preset, so I import all the images and they come in with the lens correction applied and with everything applied, but then you wouldn't learn. So let's go ahead and make this Adobe portrait. And last but not least, the white balance looks okay. I'm not seeing any bad white balance. So let's go ahead and hit auto exposure, or auto tone, I should say, and that will adjust all of these sliders. I may or may not like or agree with what it did. Maybe I think it brightened it a little too much. I can pull it back down a little bit. Maybe I think it also brought the whites up a little too much. I might bring those back down a little bit. Okay, I'm cool with that. Now, I've done all the things I want to do in Lightroom, so the next thing I will do is go ahead and just head over to Photoshop to get rid of that box. So I could use the spot removal tool in Lightroom, and it would probably work out okay since that box is pretty isolated. But I'm probably going to go to Photoshop for a couple more things anyway, so I might as well get rid of the thing or get rid of the box and do the things I want to do on Photoshop. Your point of horizon on that sky. Okay, so that's a statement by someone. I'm not sure what you're meaning by that, other than my point of horizon might have been off. All right, so let's go ahead and grab that that thing with the patch tool. We're just going to pull it straight down, and that will patch it right out of there. See how easy that was? No futzing around with the spot removal tool. It's just done. Now I'm zooming in on something I see that you don't see because it's not on the image. It's on my screen. So just remember, clean your screen. Here's a little, I use iClear. I'm not sponsored, but anyway, iClear. Just as a quick, like I'm seeing spots on my screen that I'm thinking are need to be retouched out of the image. They're not in the image. They're on my screen because when I zoomed in, they didn't move. All right. But while we're zoomed in, we can take care of a couple other things here. Hang on, let me just clean your screen before you retouch. All right, next up, clean your display before you retouch. Next up, I just might patch out some of this wrinkle stuff. I'm not gonna take the time to do it all, but that would be, again, falling under the category of what I would do to this image. So I would just start patching out some of these little fine wrinkles in the dress just to make it cleaner. Just using the patch tool, dragging the wrinkles to areas that aren't wrinkled and replacing them. Stuff like that. And again, you would take your time and do it all. I'm just going to do a few of them. Now there's some natural ones here, but I'm just going to leave that and just maybe get rid of that one. Leave that, get rid of that one. All right, the rest looks good. That looks good. Top looks good. We'll get to the subject's face in just a moment. Just want to get rid of some more of these wrinkles in the dress. So again, it's just rinse and repeat. You would just keep doing this until you got them all. I'm not going to get them all, but it's kind of like addictive. Once you do one, you can't stop. It's like a Lay's potato chip. All right, anyway, I'm going to stop because, again, for time. But let's go ahead and zoom in and take care of some of the hot spots and things here. So, deselect. Okay, hot spots. So what I mean by hot spot is this very bright spot on her forehead from the flash. That's from the strobe. What do you do when you get a slightly different color when using the patch tool? I would switch to either mode from either normal to content aware or from content aware to normal. So in this case, we got a hot spot, and I showed this, I think, last episode, or I don't know, I showed this recently, where I want to kind of tone down that hot spot a little bit, and I could do it a couple different ways. I could try it with a patch tool, since she's got a area right next to it that's not a hot spot. I could also try it with a clone stamp tool on a different mode. So, I don't know, let's try the patch tool first. So, patch tool. And again, the problem is not having enough skin to drag it over to. So you might have to do it in pieces. Actually, that did okay. That wasn't bad. I was prepared to undo it if I didn't like it, but I'm okay with it. Then we do the nose and kind of get rid of that and just kind of get rid of some of this. So the other technique that I showed last time was with the clone stamp tool. So let me show you that on the tip of the nose. So we're just going to the stamp tool, hit the letter S, set your mode to darken, which I did. Set your opacity to 40%, which I did. Bring down your brush size to whatever you need, which I did. And now we're going to hold down the Option or Alt key, sample the part of the nose that isn't a hot spot, and then just dab over the hot spot. Now, that's only reducing it by 40% because we set it to 40, not 100. If I want more, I just do more, and that will do another 40%. So that didn't completely get rid of it, because sometimes you want that illumination. That's why you lit the subject in the first place, but it just toned it down a little bit. So I could do the same thing over here. I don't have as much skin to work with, that isn't hotspot, but let's say we go here and do that, and then we just keep resampling. And we're just toning that down a bit to get rid of some of these hotspots. So you would just keep working with it until you reduce these hotspots or completely eliminated them. And it's best to use the skin on the same side of the face, because the skin on the other side of the face is going to have a different texture. So if I'm coming over here, I'm going to use the skin right next to it. Texture goes at different angles all over the face, so use the skin that's right next to whatever it is you're trying to do. All right, and then I might clean it up a little bit with a patch. Just patch it out to kind of even it out. I love using the patch tool on normal for blending, because it blends in better than using the content aware option with the patch tool. All right, I'm actually pretty happy with that. Again, I would keep working. I would do this part on the chin as well. And oh, that's horrible. Let's undo that. I would do this part on the chin as well. I might have to do it in pieces until I got it all like toned down. And I'm doing it quick and dirty, but you would take your time and do a better job. You want to make sure it doesn't look repeated. So if there's any patterns, you want to remove them. And then just, again, tone down those hot spots. Now that we did that, while I'm here, I would always, always, always grab my Sharpen tool, reduce my brush size, and sharpen those eyes. Sharpen tool is great for just sharpening specific things you want, because it's just a brush. You sharpen with what you want. All right, she's not wearing any jewelry, but while we're here, we can get rid of obvious just lines and creases and things that no one will miss. No one will say, hey, where's that crease in her shoulder from whatever she was wearing before she put the dress on. All right, same thing here. Just kind of tone some of that out. Good, good, good. All right, oh, that's awesome. I love it. I'm still seeing a few wrinkles here that are just going to drive me crazy because I see them, but you would take your time and get rid of them all. All right, anyway, I'm not going to spend any more time, but you get the idea. Now, the only other thing I would do, since someone brought this up on one of my, in my Facebook group, they're like, hey, can you maybe do an episode where you show dodging and burning in Lightroom? And because I normally do it in Photoshop, and so I'm just bringing up the fact that people like dodging and burning. So while I'm here in Photoshop, let's go ahead and run my action. I have an action called Dodge and Burn. There it is. And all that action does, it just does three things. It duplicates the layer, it sets the blend mode to luminosity, and it switches over to the burn tool. So three things the action does. Now that the action is set up to burn, basically, what I do with the brush is, if there are shadows, like around, like the hair is casting a shadow on her forehead, it's casting a shadow on her shoulder, things like that, I'll just ever so lightly with my stylus just go around and kind of emphasize those shadows a little bit more. And I don't spend a ton of time with the burn, because the magic is in the dodge tool. So with the dodge tool, I'm going to bring my brush size down. I'm going to accent these highlights a little bit more. So the highlights on the arm, the highlight here, and it looks like he's not even doing anything. And just brighten up the eye a little bit, but just wait till I show you the before and after. Doesn't look like it's doing much. I agree. Doesn't look like it's doing much. So that's the after. Here's the before. It's a drastic difference. Just those few brush strokes make all the difference in the world in dodging and burn, or in contouring your subject. So adding that depth, adding that contour, taking advantage of those shadows and those highlights, just emphasizing them more with dodge and burn. So that's what I would end up with in this one. Her hair looks cool. Dust on the lens, yep. Okay, all of these others done directly on the image. Why not separate a layer, smart object? Robert, if you want to separate a layer and work with smart objects, by all means. I'm doing it directly on the image because The only reason we separate layers and smart objects is in case we want to go back and do something. I'm not coming back to these. If you want to come back to them and do things, great. And if I did completely screw up, completely mess this up, and say, oh my God, I have screwed up, I have missed something and done something horrible, I have the copy in Lightroom to come back to. So I explain that every single time because that question comes up every single time. I'm well aware of smart objects, well aware of doing everything on a separate layer. I don't for speed, I don't because I'm not coming back. If you're gonna come back, client may ask you to do something else, by all means, create layers. So here's my duplicate that I didn't have to create a layer for, the original image and the final image. And again, I have the layered file of everything I did if I need to go back to that dodge and burn or anything else I made a layer for and correct it. So I'm not telling you not to create layers in smart objects. I'm saying I don't for these reasons. By all means, if you want to, you can. All right, next up. Let's go to this landscape and let's go in and let me see, JPEG. So let's go ahead and do some of these same things. Lens corrections, if the metadata is there, we'll use it. If not, it's not. So let's keep going. And let's auto tone it real quick. Great. Yeah, I'm cool with that. And the horizon looks straight. Like that's the next thing I would go for. This looks perfectly straight. I would just test it. Yeah, it was straight. I may have even drug the slider down a little bit, but it was good. So what else is there? I might add a little bit more drama to the sky. That's about it. So I'll go to my graduated filter and I would set my graduated filter to exposure. And I might go the other way and pull that down. And again, I can play with that and adjust it. Too much. And I might add a little dehaze. Yeah, just kind of bring that out a little bit more. That's pretty much it. Now, the only other thing you might do is you say, well, I don't want that to happen on the trees. So keep in mind that all of these have a mask feature with the brush. So you could brush it away by holding down your Option or Alt key from the areas of the image you don't want that to happen to. So I don't want it to happen to these trees. I can brush it off the trees. And that way I'm creating like a mask that's just the sky. All right, you could add another one maybe and do the water. So for the water, I'm going to not do exposure. I'm going to do temperature. And I'm just going to pull up from the bottom this time. And that way I get some nice blue water. So again, just how much temperature you add is up to you. But I'll just add a little bit more blue to the water up front, and that's pretty much it. And I can also add a little bit of dehaze to the bottom part of that image as well. So let's go to our dehaze. All right, cool. All right, next up, and see if I lose any shadow. I'm losing some shadow detail in those rocks, but not in an area that I really care about, but I can go ahead and fix it. And that's it. Develop, before, after. So again, taking the image out of the camera wasn't bad at all, but just adding a little bit of juice to it in Lightroom can just make it look better. That's all, just a few little tweaks. And I'm, now that we're here, now that I'm looking at it, I might go ahead and add a little bit of vibrance to it too, because I do like overly vibrant photos, but that's just a personal preference. So now this is our before, kind of dull, kind of drab, kind of okay. Nothing wrong with it. That's the way it came out of the camera, and just adding a little bit of juice to it. All right, next up. Now this one was submitted from someone I know, and she asked a very specific thing that I normally would not do, but she asked me to do it, so I'm going to do it. I think it's her daughter in this image, and she says, my daughter never smiles. Can you make my daughter smile? And I normally, hands off, not trying to make women smile, not trying to make anyone smile unless they ask me to. So she asked specifically for this, making that very clear. All right, next up. So this was, I know this is a JPEG, so let's go ahead and do, I doubt if there's a lens correction to be done with it because it was probably shot on a phone. Yep. Nothing to do with that. So let's go ahead and hit auto. And auto didn't do much. So the only thing I would do now is I would just start to say, okay, how much of this image do we need and how much do we not need? So I might go to my crop tool. What's the keystroke? What's the keystroke I'm using to show the before and after in Lightroom? Let me show you that in just a second, Mary Brown. Hang on, I'm just going to crop down a little bit and I'm going to crop in a little bit because it's really about them, not about the other stuff in the frame. All right, and there we go. So the key I'm using for before and after in Lightroom is the / key. So the key under the delete key on your keyboard, on a US keyboard. Because I used to give out those keys and people would say, I don't have that key because they're in another country, they're on a different keyboard. So I always say on a US keyboard, it's under the delete key. So it doesn't show me the before and after the crop. It's only showing me the before and after the tonal values. Now, speaking of tonal values, like the dresses look like they're the right colors, temperature and all that. I'm just going to grab my white balance eyedropper just to check because they might have a little bit too much blue in them. That's a lot, too much warm. Let's pull it back just a little bit. So it warmed him up based on where I clicked. And I'm just going to bring it down just a little bit because that means that the temperature was off. It was just a little too cool, too blue. All right, so now I got that. Okay, so now let's get to I'm assuming the rest are smiling, so I'm assuming this is the one she's talking about because she's also the one looking directly at mom's camera while the other three are looking at someone else's camera. All right, so let's go ahead and Command E, PC Control E, and I didn't get this dialog box earlier because they were raw files. Because this is a JPEG, it's saying, do you want to edit the original? No, I don't. Edit a copy with the Lightroom adjustments so I don't have to duplicate that layer. So that's why. All right, so that will edit a copy. It will pop open Photoshop, or maybe not. I may have to go to it. There it is. All right, and here it is. And like everything else looks okay. I would just go ahead and do the smile thing. So let's go into, this time I'm going to duplicate a layer because I want you to be able to see the difference. So let's duplicate the layer. All right, let's duplicate the layer. We could also set that to a smart filter layer so you would always be able to come back and make adjustments to it. So for that one person that always asks me about this, convert to smart filters. Yes, I know. Okay, now we're non-destructive. Let's go. Filter, Liquify. Brought it over to another monitor. Let's make this smaller. And let's bring it over so you can see it. All right, here we go. So in Liquify, you've got the warp tool that you can always use to push and bend and push and move things. So like, for example, this little bit of elbow that's sticking out that looks like something sticking out of her dress. Let's go ahead and just adjust that a little bit. It's not her arm. I think it's just the way the dress looks. But here's the problem. If you do this, keep in mind what you're adjusting will look adjusted. So that line in the tile on the ground is being bent when I do this. A dead giveaway that you did it. So if you're going to do it, then you got to do it all. You got to move that whole line, even though it didn't need to be adjusted, so that the rest of the image looks okay. Otherwise, it will be one of the Photoshop fails that people always post and say, I can see where you use Liquify. All right, so that was the Liquify, just to fix that one little thing, just to show you how how we normally use it. But if we come all the way down to tools, there's a silhouette of a person. That's the face tool. When you click on the face tool, it will automatically identify the faces in the image. And it doesn't know who they are, so it just says face 1, face 2, face 3, face 4. So if I jump down, I'm assuming face 3 is the third one, and I go into mouth, there is a smile slider. And you can do it right on the canvas. You can come right over to the canvas, and as you hover over, here, let me zoom in. Let's make this bigger. Make this bigger and zoom in. There we go, and scroll down. All right. As I hover over the faces, it identifies all the pieces that I could move as well. But if I just go to smile, assuming that's the third face, is that the one that's moving? Doesn't look like it's doing anything on that one. All right, I'm just going to do it manually because I'm not sure which face it's working on. So I just basically twirl this up or down. You can see it. Here, if I zoom in, it's kind of fun. And move down. There we go. If I twirl this up or down, you can actually see it doing it. Now, it's not going to break off into a full-blown smile. That would be a neural filter. But we can just make her look a little happier based on what her mom asked for. This is mom requesting this, not me. I would have never even touched this. All right, that's pretty much it. Like, just because, again, she's not showing her teeth, so there's not a whole lot we can do. We just make her look a little smilier based on mom's request. All right, everybody else looks good. Everybody looks good, but mom wanted that specific feature on this specific photo. Now, while I'm here, I would probably also go in and I would just remove any spots, but because it's a smart object now, I've got to go in. I can't paint on this. I've got to go into the actual image. Yes, I know, don't show me that again, and do it there, because that's the downside with working with a smart object, is because any pixel level edits you do, you still have to do on the image inside the smart object. All right, yes, save it, close it, come back, done. And again, if we zoom in, before, after. That's all, just a small little tweak. All right, saving that one. And Brace is also a neural filter. Yes, neural filter will add teeth. No, I'm never going there to show you that, but yes, it will. I shouldn't say never, but I'm not doing that on this image. And let's go ahead and move on. All right, next up. This particular image was this is just begging to have stuff removed from it. But let's go ahead and do the stuff we would normally do first. Auto tone. And I'd probably adjust the exposure just a slightly bit more. And what's driving me crazy in this photo is the obvious, the pole, the wire, the big distractions there. So I would, number one, I would say, do we really need, oh, sorry. Hit the wrong key. I would say, do we really need all of this image? Or do we need the street? So I would start cropping away some of the stuff we don't need. All right, so now that we did that, I would go in and say, next up, let's get rid of the wire. So Command E, edit a copy over in Photoshop. And probably, yep, there it is. Okay, cool. Now that we're here, once again, just what's really bothering me the most distracting thing in the photo is the pole. And also I'm seeing some adjustment I could have probably made with the upright feature, but we'll go back and do that. So next up, let's go ahead and just use my spot removal tool. I'm going to use my spot removal, or not my spot removal tool, the actual healing brush. Different programs call it different things. The healing brush in Photoshop, I'm going to make the brush only slightly bigger than what I need to remove. And then I'm using my stylus here. I'm just going to go ahead and ever so carefully, maybe not accurately, but ever so carefully, do this in sections. So I'm doing it in sections because I found that the healing brush just works better when you do it with small pieces at a time, as opposed to trying to do all of it at once. All right, so same thing here. This giant distracting wire that has no purpose in the shot. All right, and I missed pieces, so let's go back and get those. Maybe I should have made my brush a little bigger. All right, and I will make my brush bigger for the pole. There we go. And then we're going to do the pole in sections as well. I'll patch that in just a second. Tricky part's going to be the train itself, not making it look like it was repeated. Yeah, see that number got repeated. So instead of it saying 300, it says 30,000 now. That's just because it copied over that number from the original shot. All right, so I leave it because who cares what the number is? But if you really, really, really cared and that 300 was or 9,000, 90,000, or that 900 was relevant, then I would go ahead and just paint it back in the color of the background or the black. So I would grab my brush and I would grab grab my brush. I'd grab a color, holding down my Option or Alt key to use the eyedropper. I just kind of sample that same black that was there and I would just paint it back in. Because it was 900, it wasn't 90,000. So train, yeah, and it also needs to be match what's on the side, so that is important. It is train 900 on the side as well. Now I duplicated the window too, but oh, hang on, wrong color. If you want, you would go in then and paint out that extra window as well. So grabbing that color and painting the window out. And part of the house out of the reflection of the window. And you would take your time and do a better job. But you got the idea. So that, you know, the main thing was getting rid of the pole. Now in the sky, I kind of see, because I know it was there, I kind of see a little bit of leftover something here. So I'm just going to use the patch tool and blend that right in to get rid of that. And that's what I would do to this photo. So I would get rid of that distracting thing so you can enjoy your train, and I would save it. And I would come back to Lightroom, where I've got my before and after. So let's see. This is our before. That's our after. Getting rid of that pole. And while we're here on the after, I would go back in one more time and I would apply a little upright to this. I would try auto. Yeah, because that house, church, whatever that is, looked like it was leaning over. So that's better. All right. Or insert a tree. Too much noise, blah, 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 no chainsaw. Or insert a tree in front of to cover the post. That would be way more work because the post was simply easy enough to get rid of. All right, next up. I got a few more minutes left, so good. We're cranking through a few of these much faster than I was last week. This photo caused me to pause because while I can do my normal adjustments to this, so let's go ahead and knock out a few of those. Let's do our lens correction. It's a raw file. Great. Let's do our let's do that one, and then let's go ahead and auto tone it. Yeah, while I can get the tone and all that right, the biggest distraction for me is all this stuff over here. So, like, because what we're focused on is the crowd looking at the guy or girl, whoever that is, jumping the bike. But what's taken away from this shot so much is all this other stuff. So, luckily, the sky is all, you know, kind of blue. That makes it easier. And I could take it in Photoshop, mask this out, and just completely get rid of that by just filling it back in the sky. And that's probably what I would do. The only other choice you might have is you could turn this into a portrait instead of a landscape and do that. But then you're kind of crowding your cyclist in and they have nowhere to land. So I would just do the Photoshop option. It'll make a copy because it's a raw file. And here it is. And I would... Oh, God. I would try. All right, here's what I would do. I would grab my my quick selection tool and I'd make my brush way bigger. And I would quickly select the grass and unselect the not grass. Just unselect all this not grass stuff. Okay. All right, great. So now I got the grass selected and nothing else. Now I'm going to inverse that selection. We did this trick last time. I'm going to inverse the selection. Select, inverse. And now everything else but the grass is selected, because what that will let me do is it will let me use the grass as a boundary. So now I would, I don't know, I could patch it out. Well, actually, I would, since I got a selection, I will go ahead and clone it out. So using a bit clone stamp tool, and knowing that I don't have to worry about, oh, hang on, this is set to darken, normal. So it was on the last mode for removing the hotspots. So I would just take, oh shit, hang on. Sorry about that. Oh, I'm just doing a horrible job at this. All right, never mind, never mind. Come over here, do this. There we go. All right, getting there, just picking multiple sources to clone from. Don't worry about it looking like, you know, it's too blue or too dark. We will fix that in a minute. I'm just kind of quickly trying to get rid of it all since I only got a couple minutes left. And then we'll blend it in. All right, yeah, see how much less distracting that looks already without all that stuff in it? All right, so now we got just some sky tonal issues. We can deselect because we used the mask of the grass to not cover the grass. That was the whole point of it. And now we're going to go ahead and grab our where did I lose it? There is my patch tool. All right, with my patch tool, I'm just going to blend some of this stuff in. There we go. So we don't see a distinct line where I had darker sky and lighter sky. And again, you take your time and do a better job, maybe even of the cloning to begin with, but I'm fixing it after the fact. There's a little stake or something in the ground here. Let's just patch that right out. And same thing, you'd zoom in, make sure you got it all. I'm just doing a down and dirty job just to make that better. All right, now you want to see a trick? Let's go in and use this is just a bonus trick. I'm going to go in and use my, do I see it there? I don't see it. This is a problem when you make your own custom toolbar. You have to remember where you put tools. All right, I'm going to use, nope. Maybe I didn't even put it on this toolbar. Let's go see. No, it's there. I'm just not seeing it. Okay. When you can't find a tool, here's another bonus trick. I know the tool's there, I'm just not seeing the icon because I'm in a hurry. Content aware move tool. Take me to it. It was right there all along, I just didn't see it. And we're going to take our cyclist. We're going to move the cyclist up. We're going to make our cyclist bigger, up, and the content aware move tool does just that. It lets me take something I select, move it, resize it even, and automatically fill in where it used to be. So that's our new cyclist. And I might, need to go in and do a little touch up around my selection because the sky is different, and just kind of patch those out. So now it looks more, now keep in mind, the people are looking where it used to be, so that's going to be a giveaway. You might not move them so far, or him or her so far, but you kind of get something bigger, cooler, like that fills the frame a little bit more. All right, so that's my take on that image. I think I moved them over a little too far based on where the people are looking, but really you're going to be looking at this, not so much where the people are looking. But if that's bugging you, don't move it over so far. All right. So again, big difference from where we were. This is where we were. This is where we ended up. Before, after. Just getting rid of all that garbage on the left-hand side that doesn't do anything good for your shot. All right, next up. We got time. We got 5 minutes left. What can I do? Oh yeah, these can be quick ones. All right, so this one's a nice waterfall. Did the right thing with long exposure. So again, I might just make sure there's nothing. Yep, see, lens correction did a nice job in uncurving that image out a little bit more. I would go in and just straighten it a little bit. Looks like the horizon here is just off a little. There we go. And I would go in and, I don't know, my white balance. No, actually it was better, but I would just play around with white balance and say, okay, it's a cloudy day. That's too warm. It's a daylight day. That's a little better. I kind of just adjust the temperature of this image a little bit more to kind of tone it down from being too blue or too yellow. All right, next up, while we're here, is we'll hit our auto. Auto darkened it too much. I don't like that, so let's go ahead and tone it back up. I would say something right about there. And I might add a little dehaze. The sky is fine, but just bring it out a little bit more. I'm still not happy with the tonal or the temperature, so let's maybe cool it off a little bit more. Or I might even go in with the adjustment brush and brush out the yellowness in the water. So because that's really what's bothering me about it. If I were to go here and just go to temperature on the blue, and I would just go in and just, that's too blue, obviously, but I would take, that's comically blue. I would take that temperature way back down, that's too much, and just kind of maybe even take some of the saturation down of that color. Yeah, let's bring the saturation down and just kind of, all right, maybe not temperature, maybe saturation. And just kind of tone that yellowness down a little bit. So I would play around with that and kind of get the effect I'm looking for. Now that I've straightened it, actually, though, I'm not really happy with it. I think you were better off about there. Something like that. All right, yeah, that's better. I overcompensated for the straightening. Next up, let's try this one. This looks like either a drone shot or a shot from the other building that we can't see. Same kinds of things I would do to this. This is a JPEG, so let's just auto-tone it. Yeah, that's better. And bring down that shadow clipping just a little bit. The sky is okay. I would maybe add that graduated filter to it. There we go. And yeah, that's it. That's about all I do to that photo. Next up, and by the way, for those of you who are like, what's the before look like? That's the before. So it's just a little too highly contrasted before. That's the after. Just bring out some of that shadow detail. Look at the trees, especially down at the bottom part of the trees. Look at how much detail we brought out just by increasing that shadow detail using the auto tone or just dragging the shadow slider over. Okay, Maurice says, oh, that's Maurice's shot. He said, yes, a drone shot. Maurice, I don't know, again, I don't know what the event was, but the only other thing I might do personally if I was trying to capture the building is I might remove the banner. But if the banner is important to the event, then yeah, keep the banner. But otherwise, looks good. All right. I already know what's going on with this. This is the same guy standing in front of a different train, number 757. This must be the conductor or something because he's wearing the same shirt. There's some obvious things going on here, so let's just quickly auto-tone that, maybe bring up the shadows even a little bit more. Okay, and just he's got spots on his shirt, so that's the only thing bugging me about this shot. So Command E, edit a copy. Get rid of the search. There we go. And just let's get rid of some of this. So we're just going to patch it out real quick. Patch it out real quick. There we go. And just kind of getting rid of, I guess they're sweat spots. Let's make it look like not such a hot day. We've all been there. I've been there many times where I don't usually wear light color shirts outside for this reason. I try not to anyway. There we go. We're making our conductor look a lot better. All right, take your time, get it all, but 10 times better that way. While we got them here, I might go ahead and run that dodge and burn real quick. And this time I'm just going to switch right to dodge and just come over the face just a little bit. Just dodge some of that shadowness. His hat is casting shadow in his face. Just brighten that up a little bit. And save and close. And it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Go back to Lightroom. There we go. So there's our before. There's our after. Before, after. I might have dodged a little bit too bright on the face, but it's a layer. I can go back and fix it. But that's it. That's all we got time for. So once again, everybody, thank you for the submissions. I always keep the rest in case I do this. Well, when I do this again, I usually pick some of those images that I never got to, and we do it again. So thanks. Stay tuned for the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge and more from the Masterclass Friday. Cheers, everybody.